Okay. Let's see. So, is there something we can do about that, or? Yeah, if they can work on something else in the meantime. What? Okay. 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 So, start again. They speak English? Oh, he's drilling something. Okay. So I have to be empathic. Wait, wait. One minute. Okay. Hare Krishna. Okay, you got the guitar. Great. Might as well tune the guitar while he's doing this. Thank you. Okay. You ready? No cartels for this when we do guitar. Mridanga is fine. So I can actually tell who's going to be attentive, who's not going to be attentive. People sitting in the back row are not going to be as attentive as those sitting in the front row. You can always tell that. No, you just don't get chastised. So we're going to do a kirtan, but usually when we do the kirtan, we want to, except for the drum player, we could stand up because our movement is meant for dancing and chanting, not for meditating on our navels. So, what? Yeah, we can go in front of the deities. That's actually ideal. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Okay. Namahom Vishnupataya, Krishna Prasthaya, Mutale, Jimate, Bhakti Vedanta, Samaniti Namane. No cartels. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gurumane Vacha Nivasesha Shunyavane Pashachagane Satarane. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Gaur Nityananda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hare, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hare, Govinda Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Ramana Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya. Jaya Radha Jayam Shunda Radha Jayam Shunda Radhe. Jaya Radha Madan Mohan Radha Madan Mohan Radhe. Madan Mohan Radha Madan Mohan Radha. Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe. Haribo, Hachibo, Hachibo, Haribo. Jaya Jaya, Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya, Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Paravidikacharya. Also Tara Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace Sabaya Chalananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti, Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya, Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda, Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Mathuradam Ki Jai, Jagadava Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Srimati Lassi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is Shri Gurun Gauranga Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nivasesa Sunyavadi Paschata Deshtardi. All right. So let's have the chorus. You got the speakers on really loud. Is this too loud for everybody? What? It's loud for me. Shh. What? Echo. Okay. How's this? Okay, this is better for me. Can everyone hear now? Is this all right? You can all hear? Okay. Okay, so we'll give you a brief introduction to empathic communication. Om Gana Tumiranda Shah Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Meditam Yena Tasmai Gurveda Maha. I offer my respectful obeisances under the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Okay, first point, empathic communication is having fun. And basically, not worrying about what other people think about you. That's the first point. Because if you're worried about reputation, what other people think of you, you're never going to have fun in life. Right, Jiva? He's great. So anyway, you'll never have fun if you're just like trying to fulfill other people's expectations all the time. Of course, fun in a Krishna conscious way, I'm not saying no rules or regulations or anything like that. But even when you follow the rules and regulations, hopefully you all follow rules and regulations here. No? Anybody eat meat here? No. Intoxication? No. Chocolate? Okay, get out. No, chocolate's all right. I would take it too, but it's not good for my health. But so when you follow the rules and regulations, you don't follow them because they're rules and regulations. Otherwise, you're not going to want to follow them. Because, why? Because we have a need for autonomy. It's one of the basic human needs. So it's the question in Krishna consciousness, instead of always asking what, how and what and when, what should we ask? Why? Because the why is actually the inspiring factor in Krishna consciousness. Not how do I do it. We should understand how to do it, understand where to do it, but the why will get us to be nishta. Everyone understands the word nishta, steady in Krishna consciousness. That's why you see a difference. Sometimes people are unsteady. They take up Krishna consciousness and then they're like a fallen star, or as like Prabhupada said, they bloop. Like something that falls from heaven falls into the water. So many people are unsteady because they're not thinking of the whys. So as I explained last night, the reason why I have been so steady, if you call it that, in Krishna consciousness is because I think of why am I doing things? I'm doing things to please Prabhupada. It's very easy. And that's bhakti. That's the difference between bhakti and karma yoga, and jnana yoga, and hatha yoga, and bhogi yoga. Isn't it? The difference is that in bhakti, you're thinking of pleasing someone. So just why do people work to support their family? Because they're thinking of pleasing their family. Like people work so many hours a day, isn't it? What did you think? He works so many hours a day, and he comes and he's just working. What? Too much work because he loves his family. Do you love your family? No answer. No, because there's a personal connection. Really, that's the personal connection. And so even if he's working, he's enjoying himself. If he remembers the why. If he doesn't remember the why, it's miserable. Like if you're, sometimes I use the example of a lady who works in a bank. The teller. And she's counting other people's money all day long. That's kind of frustrating. It's one thing if you have your own money. I know after Janmashtami in our temple in Nukaloka, I'm counting Krishna's money, and I'm happy because I know it's going to Krishna. But if I had to sit and count some demon's money, I'm not supposed to say that. If I did that deliberately. So if I have to sit and count somebody who wasn't Krishna conscious, wasn't going to use it in Krishna's service, someone who was going to buy meat, fish, and eggs and everything, I count their money, it would be torture. So this poor bank lady, bank teller, is sitting all day long, and she's not only sitting, but she's sitting in a little tiny booth. It's like worse than what they do to you in prison. Solitary confinement. She's sitting in this little tiny booth and counting other people's money. So what keeps her going? Well, if you look inside the booth without setting off the alarm, you'll see that she generally has a picture of her little husband, Bubala, whatever his name is, and I don't know what her husband's name is, and the little children, Joey and Petunia, and she keeps looking at their picture, right? And she's just thinking, oh, I'm doing it for them. And then an austerity that's so great that I cannot even imagine it. She's able to perform gladly, right? Another example, some of you will relate to, because I know none of you are bank tellers, is like a mother who changes the diapers on her kid. If you ask me to do that, I'd rather go to hell and see the Yamadutas. I mean, it's preferable. I mean, the Yamadutas at least won't have me do any of that horrible stuff. So, but anyway, I can't even describe the activity. It's so obnoxious from my perspective. But the mother's doing it gladly. Actually, Prabhupada even said one time the mother sees that substance like sandalwood pulp. Anyway. Because there's love. In other words, there's love. So we are called to do so many things for Krishna. And we see that Srila Prabhupada, are you using that too? Or why that too? Anyway, we see that Srila Prabhupada endured so many austerities at an old age, physically in an old age, out of love for his Guru Maharaj. And most of you don't understand what it means to do that in an old age. I do. Because if someone asked me to cross an ocean in a steamship without a swimming pool and water slides and everything like that, like a cruise liner. If it was a cruise liner, I'd gladly cross the ocean any day. But a steamship that's rocking from side to side, no decent prasadam, no sauerkraut or no, what else? Boiled vegetables, no Instapots. So it would be an incredible austerity. I couldn't do it. And having heart attacks on the way over, 2 heart attacks on the way. But Prabhupada never got miserable. And sometimes we see devotees who are doing things and they look very miserable. Even in the middle of kirtan, it's just, Because they're missing the point. Krishna consciousness is not just a process. We say the process of Krishna consciousness, but the process of chanting rounds, following 4 regulated principles, doing some service, is meant as a framework in which you actually go internal. And you're thinking of pleasing Krishna. If you don't go internal, of course, I also mentioned this last night, it's niyamagraha. It's simply rules and regulations, and it separates you from Krishna. That's Rupa Goswami's statement, Nachahara prayasa shapa chalpa niyamagraha janasanga shaloyam tasad vibhakti vinashyati in the Upadeshamrita. So we really have to be connected with what we're doing, why we're doing it. And then we'll do it nicely. It's joyfully performed. Prabhupada said one time to a temple president, your duty is to make sure all the devotees are jolly and eating enough prasadam. So those are the 2 main duties of the temple president. Where's our temple president? She's serving the deities. So anyway, so that's really Krishna consciousness. So, and you don't worry about what other people think of you. Prabhupada didn't worry about it. I mean, his godbrothers not all of them, some of them criticized him. He didn't worry about it. His Prabhupada sometimes would say, let the jackals howl, the caravan will pass. So in other words, you got to do what you got to do. You got to be happy. If you're happy, you'll live longer too. Many diseases are caused, in fact, most diseases have some constituent element of some psychological state or emotional state. So if you want to be healthy, you have to be happy. If you want to be Krishna conscious, you have to be happy. So happiness is required. And we see Prabhupada's example as the happiest. So, this a little bit introduction. So, what is empathy? And what is compassion? And so let's describe that briefly, and then I'm going to ask you all a question. So, there's empathy. There's 2 words I want to explain. One is empathy, and the other one is sympathy. And generally we confuse the two. Empathy basically means to try two things. To try to understand what someone is going through in terms of their feelings and needs. And if you're empathic with someone else, to appreciate those feelings and needs, and if necessary, reflect those feelings and needs. Sympathy is about the person, you, not the person you're being considerate of. In other words, let's say, okay, let's say, Jiva, say that you're angry. Who are you angry at? Your brother? Say, I'm angry at my mother for not feeding me enough pizza. So there's several things I can do with that. I could say, I feel really bad for you. That's sympathy. It's about me. Or I could take another thing that's not empathy. I could just say, that's Maya. You should just... That's called giving advice. I could just say, you know, don't you understand? One has to learn matra sparshas to skontiya, sutoshna sukadugada, agabma payana nitash tamsatiksha bharata. When you have to tolerate heat and cold, pleasure and pain, does that make you feel better? Happiness and distress. You know, aren't you a devotee? So that's called, first of all, it's sympathy, and then giving advice to someone, which actually is a disconnect. And empathy would be, yeah, you really need some tasty food, right? Do you like that answer? So, that's good. Instead of, I didn't agree with him, but I was reflecting his need for tasty food. You know, his mother's just been giving him, just some old bread, you know, chapatis, Indian food. But you like Western food, right? American food, right? So I could, you know, I could preach to him, or I could agree with him, but both of these are not empathy. Empathy is just reflecting with his needs. He had a need for tasty food, which is actually a natural human need. Everybody has different needs, and one of the needs is for tasty food. Like Prabhupada, one time they were giving Prabhupada a similar diet to that which I take for his health. And Prabhupada said, let the starvation committee go to hell. It's interesting, isn't it? Because they were concerned with Prabhupada's health, so they were giving him boiled vegetables and everything. And Prabhupada said, let the starvation committee go to hell. And Prabhupada said, it's better to die eating tasty food than to live eating this food. So, because you know, generally the devotees really cared for Prabhupada, and they were trying to really take care of his health, and Prabhupada didn't appreciate it. I mean, he appreciated the devotion, but he didn't appreciate having to eat so austerely. So it's all right. His needs are fine. We don't negate his needs. So that's what empathy is. It's not fixing him. It's not advising him. It's understanding his basic needs. And then it fulfills the most important need that we have, which is the need for connection and understanding. Isn't it? I mean, that's how many of us have people who actually understand us or connect with us? Most of our relationships are based upon people giving us advice, chastising us, telling us what to do, negating our feelings, and it's actually quite frustrating. That reminds me of a funny video I saw once. I don't know if if I'm going to offend any of you ladies with this. It's a video called "It's Not About the Nail." Some of you may have seen that and may have not seen that. There was once upon a time, there's a man with his wife or girlfriend, it doesn't matter, and she had a big nail in her forehead. You know, big nail sticking out of the forehead. You seen it? It's really funny. And it was sticking out of the forehead. Of course, it's painful. But she was complaining she said, I have a constant headache all the time. And when I put on my sweater, it snags the... And the man says, why don't you just pull the nail out? And she says, you don't understand. You really don't understand. And so, he goes through this and she gets angry and angry at him. And finally he gets it. And she says, oh, I'm in pain. He says, yes, it must be really hard. But you're in pain. She said, oh, thank you very much. And then she goes to embrace him and the nail goes further into her. It's a really funny video, but it shows that, it's not just about ladies, sorry. It's about everybody, that we do have a deep need to be heard and to be understood, isn't it? And that's what empathic communication is. It's being honest, and there's also internal focused empathic communication, that to hear ourselves, be aware of our own needs, and act in such a way to fulfill our needs, spiritual needs, material needs, and our ultimate need is to become Krishna conscious. But all these basic needs, in the Chaitanya Shikshamrita by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he talks about basic human needs, which we mentioned last night, like food, water, light, air, friendship. And then he talks about the ultimate human need, which is self-realization, Krishna consciousness. And this is interesting. It's very much in line with a psychologist from this material world, because we're all from the material world, named Maslow. Anyone's heard of Maslow before? No. In the university, you might have studied him. And he talked about a hierarchy of needs, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about it too. So that means being honest with our needs, not necessarily our desires. We have to know what needs are behind the desires, because desires can be useful in fulfilling a particular need, but they may not be useful in fulfilling other needs. It may not be holistic with all the needs. For example, if I get angry with someone, and if I go and punch them, that may fulfill my need for, feeling better about myself. But it's not going to fulfill my need for remaining out of jail or remaining free. So you have to really consider all the needs. So that's communication. That's empathy. And we all have that need. And that's really, we're going to teach the symptoms or the process of communicating, understanding one's needs, understanding the needs of others, and avoiding the pitfalls, the don'ts. That's what we're going to start with tomorrow. But first of all, I want to ask a question of all of you. And the question is, what is the biggest impediment that Kali places in our movement's path? In other words, why do we lose devotees, and why do we not make more devotees? Does anybody have any answers to that? What's the reason we're not making more devotees? Because we have the best philosophy. That's a fact. Prabhupada has given us something that's unexcelled anywhere in the three worlds, right? That's one of the things that convinced me to come to Krishna consciousness, that I was studying philosophy, and as soon as I read Prabhupada's books, that was it. So we have the best philosophy, but there's something that's causing people to leave this sometimes, not everybody. And something that is keeping people from joining? Anybody have any ideas? What?
Sometimes we try to share thinking they're at this level. We don't relate to them where they are.
Right. Right. And that, incidentally, is one of the offenses on chanting. Did you know that? One of the offenses on chanting is teaching the glories of the Lord to those who are faithless. What does that mean exactly? Everyone is faithless to a certain extent in this world, unless they're pure devotees. Because if you're completely faithful, then the statement is in the Bhagavatam, Yasya Deva Para Bhakti Date Tashaite Katitar Yarte Pragashante Mahatmana. If one has implicit faith, and this is a verse from the Bhagavatam, if one has implicit faith in the spiritual master, implicit faith in the Vedic literatures, everything gets revealed to one. So therefore, we understand that all of us have a lack of faith. I wouldn't say we're faithless, because that faithless might indicate that there's zero faith. We wouldn't even be here. But we have some lack of faith. And because we have some lack of faith, we have to be dealt with in a way that is empathic or consistent with our lack of faith. So the way I usually explain that offense on chanting is that before talking to someone, we have to understand where they're at spiritually and emotionally and intellectually, and approach them on their level as far as what they're able to understand. Even you have in the Christian Bible, there's the statement that Jesus Christ said, there's much I have to tell you, but you cannot bear to hear. I mean, can you imagine in the Middle Eastern portion of the world where Jesus Christ was preaching, if he came out and started preaching Bhagavad Gita and reincarnation? Do you know what? Does anyone know what would have happened to him? What? Any ideas? Well, he would have been put on the cross immediately. It wouldn't have taken a year or two. It would have been immediate. And so we really have to be careful how, not that we hide something from someone, but there's appropriate methods of presenting Krishna consciousness. Like if we present about the gopis, you know, we go out in the street and we start talking about Krishna kissing the gopis and dancing with the gopis. People are not going to understand what's happening. And they won't join our society. I just like recently I was giving the Jaiva Dharma course online. But then we reached to the point where it got really intimate with Krishna and the gopis. And I said, that's it, I'm not teaching this course. You know, I'm stopping here in the book, because it's not appropriate for the audience. So first thing is, we use our ears when we're dealing with people. As I often say that you have 2 ears and 1 mouth and 2 nostrils. And so you use the ears twice as much as you use the mouth. How about that? 2-to-1 ratio. But we often have the idea we use the mouth 20 times as much as we use the ears. And that reminded me when I first came to the Hare Krishna temple, years ago, before anyone here was even their parents were married. So, it's true. So, I was sitting in class and someone just preached really heavy to me, like 1969 or something like that, and told me that I was in the body, I better join right away, Kali Yuga is coming. I was basically going to be living underground, eating human flesh, being short as a dwarf. And if I didn't join immediately, all that was there for me. So, and all my beautiful hair had to be shaven off. And I looked like Satya Sai Baba with a beard. A young version of Satya Sai Baba. So I just ran out the door as fast as I could and said, these people, I mean, I like the chanting, I like the prashadam, but these people are too much for me. And for about a year or so later, every time I saw a Hare Krishna devotee, I would turn my car around, put the pedal to the metal, you know, I mean, he's going real fast, and go in the opposite direction. And finally, I don't want to join, I'm chanting, following the regular principles. That's fine. You people stay away from me. And so fortunately what happened, I was informed that His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada was coming to town. And it was really mercy because it was some small town in the state of Florida called Gainesville, Florida. And somehow or other, Krishna in my heart said to me, Krishna started to preach since the devotees couldn't preach properly. So at least Krishna understood what I needed. So Krishna said, all right, you rascal, go to the temple. So I just okay. I said, no. Oh, actually, I'll tell you it's a funny story. I said to Krishna, I'm not going to do it. It's too much for me to be with those people. So I made a deal with him. This has nothing to do with the course, but it's interesting. I made a deal. I said, I'm going to go into this jungle right now in the night and walk in there, and if I get out within a reasonable amount of time, I'll believe that you exist, and it's time for me to join. And I'm going to chant the whole time. So I went into this jungle. In Florida, that also means alligators and all sorts of interesting creatures. So I was in the jungle, and Hare Krishna, Krishna, you better show yourself. So I had this, this vision, of Lord Vishnu with 4 hands. And I kept walking, and then 2 seconds later, I was out of the jungle. I said, okay, it was a deal. Why did I make that deal? So the next day, in spite of the devotees, I walked to the temple and said, can I join? And they said, yes, the hair has to come off. Beautiful long black hair, Keshava. So attached. Even those days the men even went to beauty parlors. I never did, but... And so I joined in spite of the devotees. In spite of the devotees. Later on I got to like them. But so that's just to illustrate the point. Of course, I know none of you were like that. But had I been received empathically with some understanding of my needs, I would have been in the movement 2 years earlier, a year or 2 earlier. And it wasn't Krishna's plan. I can understand. Devotees could make an excuse and say, it wasn't Krishna's plan anyway. My being rough with you was actually Krishna's desire. You hear this sometimes, like one devotee chastises another devotee and says, Krishna was speaking through me to chastise you. No, it wasn't Krishna. It was your false ego, buddy. Parents say that to the kids all the time, isn't it? Krishna wants you to do this. So where's Jiva? He's not here anymore. But anyway, see back here. So next time your mother tells you that Krishna wants you to do something, you say, how do you know? Do you speak to Krishna? It's going to ruin your parenting. So really that's important. So we have to hear from people and hear empathically. Not just reflect like a mirror, but reflect empathically. So really, that's important. And then we have to communicate that empathy properly. Properly means it shows in your words, it shows in your bodily expressions. Because communication is mostly nonverbal. That's something I really want to point out to everyone here. Because I was hearing from some of the people in the community that sometimes there's texting between the devotees. Here's a text. Can you cook the offering this evening? Why can't you do it? You're a rascal. I don't know if it's quite like that. Said, you're so irresponsible, I'm always having to fill in for you. You ever heard that? Anyone's heard those things in text? No. Yeah? You have? Okay, so I'm right. So texting, and even if you text something really nice, like, I appreciate you, the person may be thinking, he's being sarcastic. So even when you're trying to be nice, texts or emails can be misunderstood very easily. That's why those experts in communication have said that actual communication is only 8% words or verbal, and 92% is nonverbal, including the tone of voice and everything like that, even though that's a verbal thing. But 92% is basically body, motion, and tone of voice. And actually, there's some really interesting things about this. I think I have this on the sheet here. Oops, well, maybe I didn't include that today, which I wanted to. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow. I did. Sorry. And we're going to do some examples of this. This is actually good. So there's actually they've analyzed that there's 8 different types of nonverbal expression. 8 different manifestations of nonverbal expression. And actually, maybe we have someone do this for us. We'll do the first one is facial expressions. Who wants to manifest some facial expressions? Anyone here? I'll show you a disconnect. All right, let me just show you, and then maybe one of you can do it. So let's say I'm telling someone, the words are very pleased with you. Okay. I'm very pleased with you. What do you get from that? Very sarcastic, isn't it? Extremely sarcastic. So who wants to do one for me? We got to have some interaction here. It can't be just me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that was pretty good. You're pretty consistent with it. Yeah, so can you try that again? Yeah, something a little more inconsistent, with your words. What's that? Okay, thinking about it. Okay.
This is really interesting.
That's good. Okay, and another one is the loudness of voice. Okay, I can do the first one. I'm really pleased with you. Can anyone do? No, we won't do that one. So, and then the next one is gestures, like with hands or something like that. Could someone do one with that? Can't be all me. Hand gestures, they're inconsistent with the words.
I was thinking of some mudras, Maharaj, but I don't think...
Not that mudra. All right, all right, you do one. Yeah, that's good. You're such a good cook. I love your perfume. Because you're saying the words actually sound really good. But there's an inconsistency. So which one speaks louder? The body action speaks louder, right? Than the words. Here's another one. Body language. You're such a good devotee. So body language, that's also hand gesture, but it's also the whole body in there. The next one, okay, I'll need a volunteer for this one. Is called, can you come up here for a second? This is, of course, in the West, it is different than the East. So this is called personal space. I like what you're doing. You violate someone's personal space. Of course, in India, it doesn't have the same effect because you're not used to a lot of personal space. I remember one time I had spent a lot of time in India. Came back from the West. I was at the airport in the West, and I was on line with someone. So I was worried someone was going to sneak in the line like they do in India. So I was like this close to the person in front of me. He was an American. He said, "What are you doing, buddy?" But in India, you got to do that because unless you're just touching the person in front of you, you're going to lose your place in line. One time I was riding the train in Bengal in the baggage car when I was a new devotee. And I was sitting on, the shelf or whatever, where the baggage was. And someone came and sat next to me. And there's a little space. Someone else came next to him. The typical story, but I experienced it personally, and I was on the floor after. They didn't care about the space or anything like that. So, the next one is eyes and touch. You roll your eyes or something like that. It really speaks loudly, I really like to be here. Appearance, like you come to place and you're dressed real sloppily, And then also objects. Objects means you have objects in your hand. Like you find someone in class, they're playing with the mobile phone all the time. Yeah, I'm paying attention. I'm reading along with you. I had one disciple recently. He pulls out his computer, big computer in the middle of class. Isn't it? There's no hurry. And he was doing God knows what in the middle of class. Yeah. I'm paying attention. So, these are nonverbal cues. And this really blocks communication. Any of these nonverbal cues. So next time you have some interaction with someone, try to do it at least with a video call, if you can. I mean, something that could be misunderstood. I mean, a telephone call, I'll see you at the temple at 5 o'clock. Okay, fine, that's fine. Or texting, see you. Anything more serious, you got problems. Of course, nowadays we have this wonderful thing called emojis, which are actually body language, which is kind of nice. It's sort of like a substitute for body language. I get them all the time in little hearts. One today, a heart's with an arrow through it. Smiley faces. There's one where someone's regurgitating. I mean, I can show you my text messages. You'd be shocked. all these emojis I get. I guess it's good as body language. It's better than words. You know what an emoji is? Everyone knows what that. And some people send me even these motion emojis, where someone is just moving. It's like a motion GIF. You know what that is, a motion GIF. So anyway, so it's important to be able to honestly communicate, be consistent with our communication, and hear from others. And if there's some, let's say, emotion or feeling you want to express, there will be a disconnect, you wait. Many times there's a pressing need just to respond to someone, right? Someone sends you something really that agitates you. And you get some satisfaction, like a relief. Boom, press the send button. You feel like, wow, catharsis. I don't even know what a catharsis is. Isn't it? She's a temple president where I come from. It's like, and he said, I got him. It's like the old West, in America, where you pick up your gun, boom, you're dead. So, fortunately for myself, I've discovered something very nice on WhatsApp. You can erase your messages. Can't do that with normal text messages. But WhatsApp. So one time I sent a really heavy message that was probably extremely, annoying to the person. And I was thinking, I got to erase it, And I said, he hasn't seen it yet. The 2 checks are not blued out yet. Do you ever have that happen? And so I went to erase it really quickly. But what I did is they give you the option, you can erase for yourself or erase for everyone. So by accident, I erased it just for myself. You can't go back and retrieve it after that point. Yeah, I don't have any proof of what I said. Then you just have to say, someone said, you said this, and I said, did I say that? I don't remember. Someone else must have picked up my phone for. So the main thing is we have to be really careful. There was one American, I believe it was Benjamin Franklin, who says, if you ever get angry with someone, you write the letter, put it in your desk, and then next morning, don't send it. You tear it up. So it's like that. Whenever you have some really heavy emotions and you're going to want to send something, write it out, but don't press the, of course, sometimes by accident, the send button gets pressed. But somehow or other, wait. Or if you're having an argument with someone, even in person, you take a time out. You don't do timeouts with someone else. Like sometimes you tell a child, time out. The child experiences that as rejection. But with yourself, you take a long walk, you breathe deeply, you say, what was my need? And we're going to do a very interesting demonstration of that. Not tonight. That's coming attraction. Tomorrow, most likely tomorrow, the next day, where we're going to show you how to deal with someone who really pushes your buttons. Pushing your buttons means makes you upset. There's an exercise how to deal with it, but it requires taking care of your own needs first, and then ultimately understanding the other person's needs and dealing with them accordingly. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's empathy. And so the thing that I've seen keeps us from connecting with people, that is the thing that actually keeps us from making more devotees. And that's the reason Prabhupada made so many devotees. There's the philosophy, but Prabhupada connected with some, and that's the reason Prabhupada made me a devotee. because I connected with Prabhupada on a personal level from the very beginning. Because Prabhupada's body language, tone of voice, demeanor, spirituality, and everything influenced me to such an extent that I did what I didn't want to do. Ultimately, I did what I wanted to do, but in a surface level, I did what I didn't want to do, which was join the Hare Krishna movement. And I'm happy I did. 54, 55 years later. But it was Prabhupada's love, Prabhupada's compassion. My first impression of Prabhupada was, here was someone who actually loves everybody. And his love is not conditional. Like sometimes you parents will tell your children, and I know you have unconditional love for your children, I'm not doubting it, but you'll tell the children something like, if you really love me, you would do well in school. Anyone's ever said that to their children? Yeah. Any of you second generation people have heard that from your parents? I mean, in India, I know, because I come from India too. The same culture, I mentioned that last night, the same culture. Jewish Indian. This is the same thing as from Gujarat. It's indistinguishable from people from Gujarat. So all the time, I know all the expressions, I'm very familiar with them. If you really love me, my son would never get less than an A in school. Your duty is to obey me. Your duty is to obey your parents. Your duty is to make me happy. Of course, I was quite rebellious. I would always ask my mother this why question. I would say, why? And she just got bewildered. She said, your duty is to become a doctor. Why? Your duty is not to join the Hare Krishna movement. Why? And anyway, my nature was rebellious, which is actually good. Prabhupada said, if you have a child that's rebellious, you should be very, very happy. Because Prabhupada said, rebellion and cheekiness is the sign of intelligence. Prabhupada actually said that. And that's the sign that your child will be a leader in the future. And one of the reasons that Prabhupada came to America is that the people in America are naturally rebellious. I mean, in one sense. So I want to encourage that amongst the young people. Don't ever listen to sorry. No. Cooperate with your parents, be empathic with your parents. Okay. But you don't have to listen to them. You can listen to them. Yeah. Listen to them. Okay. Sorry. I'm going to get myself in big trouble here. Never get invited back, which is all right. I got half the temples that don't invite me back now. Was that? So, Prabhupada came to America and he understood, the Americans generally, why didn't Prabhupada go to Great Britain? Because the British people, they're more cool. Isn't it? They're just more obedient and everything like that. Okay, Brexit, yes, sir. Which is one of the things that destroy the English economy, is this Brexit. But the Americans, now, of course, it's different now. Americans become very divided, and we talked about this last night. But we have this tendency, rebellion. We rebelled against the English long before the people in India rebelled against the English. And so Prabhupada understood that we would be more adventurous and go to new places. I remember when Prabhupada came to America, he would send people, they were 6 months in the movement, he'd send them to new countries to start temples. I mean, I basically went off on my own to start a temple when I was 6 months in the movement, to give me a Sunday feast lecture, and when I was 6 months in the movement. This is what, we were always trained up like that. You join the movement, you stay in the temple for some time, but you're going out. And then I went to South America with Maharaj and helped start whole movement in South America. Didn't speak a word of Spanish, now I do, of course. And it was just like a rebellion. Not against Prabhupada, of course. But the reason we followed Prabhupada was because of love. And Prabhupada appreciated it when people had a little different opinion. Like one of Prabhupada's closest disciples was Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who would sometimes argue with Prabhupada, not in a disrespectful way, but he would argue with Prabhupada, presenting different opinions about different strategies, not about the philosophy. And he performed tremendous, tremendous service in Bombay and other places around the world. So we have to appreciate, Prabhupada said, independent thinking, not independent from Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada appreciated that independent, inventive thinking that people had. So if your children are of that nature, fan that spark, because they can do amazing things for Krishna and for the world later on in life, if they have that nature. Not everybody has the nature. So basically, yes. So we need to be like Prabhupada and be empathic with people and loving with people, and then we'll make more devotees. And there's some, let's see. Okay, I just want to read some quotes from Prabhupada's books, because usually I do that in the seminars, where Prabhupada talks about how devotees, real devotees actually reject this concept of friends and enemies, but actually consider everyone to be connected as part and parcel of Krishna. Now, this is a very important point, that we reject the concept of these external designations. Sarvapati vinid muktam tad puratrena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakta ruchate. And we see everybody as part and parcel of Krishna. We reject nationality, we reject racism, we reject, people of different, with the concept that people have different religions. And we see everyone as very much connected to each other, because we're all of the same nature. So we never consider, at least the devotees should never consider someone to be his enemy, or someone to be, we could be friendly with people. We shouldn't consider people to be one person to be more important than another person, except for the spiritual master, simply on the basis of politics. So here's a quote from the Bhagavatam. And this is from the story of Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad certainly heard and recited the topics of politics and economics taught by his teachers, but he understood that political philosophy involves considering someone a friend and someone an enemy, and thus he did not like it. Isn't that what we see in American politics today? There's all this friends, divisiveness, enemies, denigration of your enemies. As we said yesterday, giving your enemies a name. Like one of our politicians in America is quite expert in coming up with these really unique, funny names for his opponents. Isn't it? Actually, he's quite intelligent in that regard. It's not Krishna conscious intelligent. So Prabhupada says in his purport, politics involves accepting one group of men to be enemies and another group to be friends. Everything in politics is based on this philosophy, and the entire world, especially at the present, is engrossed in it. The public is concerned with friendly countries and friendly groups, or enemy countries and enemy groups. But as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, a learned person does not make distinctions between enemies and friends. Devotees especially do not create friends and enemies. Sometimes we even do that amongst devotees, isn't it? This is someone I'm friendly with. I mean, we can be closer with certain people than we are with other people. But we don't have these enemy images. We talked about images last night. We give people a name, like Prabhupada said, give the dog a bad name and hang him. So we have these like metaphorical images, which everybody, well, those of you who were here last night will remember, how I gave some psychological or sociological analysis of what happens when people give names to other people, especially derogatory names, and how it creates it short circuits basically the discrimination that one has in one's brain, and one develops ultimately cognitive dissonance. Anyway, so devotee sees that every living being, this is what Prabhupada is saying, is part and parcel of Krishna, Mami Vangsa Jivabhuta. Therefore, a devotee treats friends and enemies equally by trying to educate them both in Krishna consciousness. Of course, atheistic men do not follow the instructions of pure devotees, but instead consider a devotee their enemy. A devotee, however, never creates a situation of friendship and enmity. It means with enemies. Although Prahlad Maharaj was obliged to hear the instructions of Sanda Namarka, he did not like the philosophy of friends and enemies, which forms the basis of politics. He was not interested in this philosophy. So when we treat others, even other devotees, as enemies or special friends or more important than others, we're engaged in politics. And what does Chandakapanda say about politics? Don't trust politicians. A person is considered, here's another quote, further advanced when he regards, this is Bhagavad Gita, regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral, mediators, envious, friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with equal mind. Pandita Samadarshana. Here's another statement. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equal poised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me. Bhagavad Gita, of course. Our creation of friends and enemies is one from the Bhagavatam. Within this material world is something like dreaming at night. In dreams, we create so many things out of various impressions in the subconscious mind, but all such creations are simply temporary and unreal. In the same way, although apparently we are awake of material life, because we have no information of the soul and supersoul, we create many friends and enemies simply out of imagination. And let's see if I have this quote here. Yeah. I just want to end, before we take questions, because today we'll keep it short, and I want to end by 7, with 2 quotes from my dear godbrother, Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, that indicate the same thing. 1, treat everyone you encounter as if the success of your spiritual life depends upon the quality of your interactions with them. That's pretty heavy, isn't it? Anyone's heard that one before? You've heard that before. Treat everyone. Everyone is an absolute term. What do they say? Don't say never ever, or something like that. So, but this is an absolute term. Everyone you encounter, as if the success of your spiritual life depends on the quality of your interactions with them. Wow. Even people who push the wrong buttons. Success of my spirit. Krishna is watching to see what I do. Krishna sends them. Yomam pashati sarvatra sarvam chamai pashati dashaham na pranashami sachame na pranashati. One who sees Krishna everywhere, sees everything in Krishna, is never lost to Krishna, nor is he ever lost to him. Anyway, Bhagavad Gita 6:30. So if we see someone comes to us, and especially when you're in a position in a temple, I know Leela Shakti has experienced that too. People come to the temple and you get all sorts of interesting characters coming to the temple. I mean, I heard just even, was it yesterday, someone came to the temple in Chicago. What do they do? Yeah, they took off their clothes in front of the deities. I mean, of course, you don't allow them to stay there and do it, but still, you have have to treat them compassionately. You know, of course, you don't allow them to stay in the temple room, obviously, but what to do? What to do? Everyone you encounter. Number two, realize that the people in your present environment might very well be the people with whom you will live out your life and who will be with you at the time of death. That's a heavy statement, isn't it? The people in your present environment, they may be with you for the rest of your life and be with you at the time of death. I mean, just like, you know, we're right here, but any one of us could die right now. So you should treat everyone. In other words, what Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, is saying that we should deal with everyone compassionately, empathically, seeing the soul and acting for their best spiritual interest. So anyone have any questions? Questions about anything? Tomorrow we'll get into the details of empathic communication.
It's about the main reason in Kali Yuga, like how, you know, when we are speaking, when we are speaking with others, we are speaking at different level. It's about the topic. So if I am going through something, so then obviously the other person in the not same space, so then I cannot really speak. Basically, I need to take care of myself and then speak with others, Maharaj.
Yeah, you got to take care of yourself. That's one of the things we'll be talking about. Take care of your own needs first. If your needs are so pressing, you can't hear them. Hearing doesn't mean the words, but if you can't hear what they're feeling and what their needs are, or at least make a reasonable guess, or be concerned with them, then you just take care of your own needs. Pull yourself away. Now, you brought up an interesting point implicitly in that question. You mentioned Kali Yuga. Now, many times, devotees use Kali Yuga as an excuse. What can I do? It's Kali Yuga. That's what we call one of the blocks of communication, denial of responsibility. This is Kali Yuga, Prabhu. I didn't get enough to eat tonight. Isn't it? My blood sugar is down. Therefore, I'm nasty. Don't speak to me right now. Because anyway, I'm in a bad mood. I woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. So, anyway, thank you for that question. So, any other questions? Yes. Yes, sir.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Wonderful class. My question is, oftentimes we find ourselves being empathetic to people, but they're not responsive to that empathy. So in that case, what do you think is the best idea to do?
That's their responsibility, not ours. So, in other words, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. Like if it's a type of what we call codependence, to think that, you know, I can change someone's mentality by my actions, or I'm responsible for someone. All we can do is try our best. You know, I learned that very early in the guru business. Yeah, the guru business. That in the beginning, I felt like extremely responsible for everyone. I became a helicopter guru. You know what a helicopter guru is? Helicopter parenting. You know, clean your hands. You just ate. Clean your hands. Clean your feet. I remember it was like that in the beginning days of the movement. Everyone was helicoptering over everyone else. So it's like if you made a little bit of a mistake, oh my God. Then it was all over. And you actually had to clean your feet before eating and after eating. But the problem was there was only one hand washing sink in the prasadam room. So everybody, you try to emulate that. They had to just like raise their foot and put it in the sink where everybody's washing their hands and mouths. So usually all these brahmacharis, lifting their legs and sticking it in the sink. Or else they get criticized. So it was quite an interesting experience to be there in the early days of the movement. So anyway, I was thinking I was a helicopter guru. I'm responsible. Oh, you fell in Maya. What did I do wrong? Did I neglect you? Did I say the wrong thing? You get all these... Parents do that all the time, isn't it? Like, what did I do? And, you're just in a state of trauma all the time. Oh, this disciple is having spiritual trouble. It's all my fault. I'm not Krishna conscious enough. So, and actually you see that in the beginning, Prabhupada, also he used to cry when devotees left the movement. And, after a few times, you develop this understanding that it's your business to try to give people as much Krishna consciousness as possible. At least that's what I feel. And it's their business. They can either accept or not accept. So otherwise, if you get all this guilt feelings and everything, it's going to kill you. You're going to start running after every disciple or any person you're trying to preach to, like they're rejected lovers or something like that. Isn't it? I mean, I've seen some people get in that mood. Preachers, not only gurus, I've seen the helicopter preachers. I'm thinking of one right now. I'm not going to mention the person's name. But anyway, helicopter preachers just like texting. The person, oh, please, I wish the person would stop texting me. Driving me crazy. Where are you now? Did you actually eat mushrooms? Don't you understand what Guru Maharaj would say about it? Of course, if they have the right Guru Maharaj, the Guru Maharaj would join them for the mushrooms. That's me, of course. Anyway, just people go, oh my God, it's like, you get paranoia, of being watched. Guru Maharaj has put what is it got? The tracker, what is it called, eye tracker or something like that? No, the tracker that Apple has, what is it called? Apple tracker or something like that. So you have to put one of these trackers in each one of your disciples. So you put it in their car, and then the Guru Maharaj is there with his computer all the time. Here's so-and-so Das, so-and-so Dasi. Uh-oh, they're meeting. What are you doing talking to so-and-so Das? It's like that. So, sometimes husbands do that with wives, and wives do that with husbands. They put a tracker in their car, isn't it? So, after a while, you're just like, whatever. Everybody has their own decisions. I'm not responsible for your decisions. And ultimately, when a child grows up, you're not responsible. Whatever. Their Krishna consciousness is great. And the love the parents have for the child has to be equal. It can't be conditional upon what the person does. You have to really care. And ultimately, that's the only thing that will affect someone. That even if they don't listen to you, they don't respond to your empathy, you still care for them. That's a hard one, isn't it? That's perhaps one of the hardest things. You still care for someone regardless, and that was Prabhupada right there. Even if someone didn't listen to him, he may have gotten upset, he may have chastised them, but he would still care for you just as much. And Krishna's like that too. That's why when Gopakumar in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita goes back to Godhead, Krishna is saying, I was just waiting for you, and he grabs him and he embraces him. And that's the nature of Krishna, and Krishna's in your heart. He still cares you. He's never going to leave your heart no matter what you do. So, any other questions? Yes, sir. It is off.
Maharaj, I have the communication, the subject of communication we may hear, but I'm feeling that it might take lifetimes to practice.
Yes.
So the communication is not that.
Sham Sundar ki jai, Madan Mohan ki jai.
So one thing I have seen in our Krishna conscious life, when somebody comes up, I have some problem, chant Hare Krishna, everything will be all right. That's the regular.
Doesn't work.
That's the word comes. But we don't understand how that, what I mean to say is, if you're Krishna conscious, do you think your behavior changes, your communication changes, your quality changes? How does it going to help if you just chant Hare Krishna, if you don't deal properly in your common sense?
That's right.
So how do I understand? Because it normally comes from a buzzword, chant Hare Krishna, you'll be happy.
Yeah, so obviously if one's a pure devotee, all these things happen automatically. If one's a pure devotee, that's a big if. But the way to become a pure devotee is to interact with one of the methods, or important, necessary ingredient, not sufficient, but necessary ingredient, is to interact properly with people. Because if you don't interact properly with people, you remain, the philosophy, you remain on the lower class platform, the Kanishta platform. A Majjhima Adhikari, that means the middle platform, understands how to react properly with people, and that's a requisite. It's necessary in order to be Krishna conscious. So we have to learn, because of our training or our experiences in this world, we have to learn how to interact with people properly and compassionately, which is the Majjhima Adhikari platform. That even though a Majjhima Adhikari avoids people who are envious, a Majjhima Adhikari never hates them. He still has compassion for them. And Uttama Adhikari approaches everybody and he's just like, sees everybody as devotees. We don't emulate that platform. So yes, we have to learn, and it basically does take a lifetime of practice. I could say I've been studying this and teaching this since God knows when. I don't know when I first started studying empathic communication or nonviolent communication. I think 2010 or something like that. I don't remember the year, 2010, 2009, 8, whatever it was. The history is that I saw some lack in myself, and I saw some lack in the interactions with devotees. And because of my academic background, both in psychology, of course science, which has nothing to do with this thing, but I looked into different strategies for understanding people that were consistent with Shastra. And I came across something called nonviolent communication. And I decided to study it, and I studied one of the founders of it. His name was Marshall Rosenberg, and spent a lot of time. We did some intensives, and I adapted nonviolent communication to Krishna consciousness. And there's a book I published called Empathic Communication. So it takes a lot of practice. And what I'm hoping to introduce tomorrow is the methodology of practice. Because today I just presented some of the pitfalls, some general philosophy around empathy and sympathy. And there's a whole way we can practice it. Like sadhana bhakti, there's a whole way we can practice it and ultimately integrate it into our lives. The process of empathy. And it's very close to the teachings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his teachings on needs and how everyone is functioning according to people's needs. So if you attend tomorrow, probably most of it tomorrow, Sunday maybe a little bit, maybe a little bit of practice, but mostly tomorrow we'll be talking about that and presenting that, doing some exercises. Anyone else have any questions? Yes, yes.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. It's a very nice, and one of the points that you said, I'm just repeating it because I don't want to lose it for myself, is how we find people in this world who we cannot interact with or deal with because they may be too difficult or abusive or whatnot, but the devotee is functioning on that, recognizes that, but he fundamentally doesn't hate them. He still has that mood of compassion, which Prabhupada was saying, and that's a difference of response between a devotee. That how do you do both? Because sometimes, well, I can't associate with this person, or I'm unable to, but it's not from a place of inimical feeling. It's more practicality. Is that right? Yeah.
That's right. Thank you for reflecting what I said.
Okay. And then secondly, I had a question was, on one hand, we have in our tradition the idea that we very much like, in ethics they talk about loyalty, that loyalty is an ethical principle actually, we should be loyal. On the other hand, in our loyalty and friendship, one thing that I personally observed, that if we, out of friendship, support an offense to a devotee, it still is an offense. That's right. And so it's sometimes difficult in spiritual life, because on one hand we have an association that we are grateful to or loyal to. On the other hand, we are, the offense is an offense. So can you give any practical tips on how to balance that?
I'll actually give the example of how I dealt with my father. Like any fanatic Hare Krishna devotee, when I first joined the movement, I thought I would convert my parents by telling them they were not the bodies, they were engaged in material. I thought my father was like Hiranyakashipu. He wasn't. He was a great father. He gave me everything I wanted, which is were the best he thought. I had a sports car and all those kind of cool things. Not a Ferrari, but I had a Firebird, an MG. Yeah, see, aren't you envious? But still, I thought I'll do the best thing for my father, And I was like Prahlad Maharaj went home to my father and said, you're too attached, you're chewing the already chewed. Matirna Krishna Paratos Vatova. I didn't quote Sanskrit with him. And he said, you're not the body, all this business that you're doing, you're going to lose it one day. And, all this opulence, it's just Maya Shukaya. And he got really angry with me as a result of that. And he did start to say negative things about the movement. In fact, there was an attempt to have me deprogrammed in the beginning. Didn't have me deprogrammed, but he called one of his psychiatrist friends to interview me. I went home to visit him, and he said, I want you to meet my friend, Dr. Freud. And so, that wasn't his name, but anyway. But, doctor, psychiatrist. And my father said, I got to go somewhere. I'll leave you alone with, entertain my friend. The friend sat down with him. He said, are you happy? And I said, yes, but the question is, are you happy? So by the time I was finished with his psychiatrist, he thought he needed a psychiatrist at that point. So he told my father, there's nothing I could do with this guy, So my father started to be critical because I was preaching to him inappropriately. And I just said to my father one time, when I realized that it was my fault, I said to him that, let's just talk about something we can all agree with, because my relationship with you is more important. To me, the relationship was very important. So then we just started talking about politics. My father was a Republican, not a follower of Donald Trump. Donald Trump wasn't even alive at that time. Wasn't even born, what to speak. So, but, I remember he was in favor of someone named Barry Goldwater or someone. I don't know if you remember these people. Anyway, Richard Nixon. So whatever it is. So I would just talk about politics. He wasn't into sports, so I couldn't talk about sports with him. But about politics and, different things like that. And then the relationship became very good. So I just set the boundaries for the relationship. I made it very clear to me how important the relationship was, but also my own feelings. So in any relationship, there's certain places you just don't go to. Like you don't criticize someone's child in a relationship. Even if the child's ugly as hell. You don't say to the parents, what are you going to do with that ugly kid? You wouldn't say that. Even though it's the absolute truth, the kid's ugly. From a relative standpoint, anyway. Your kid looks like Porky Pig, basically. You say that to a parent, it's just like, so you just don't go there. What do you think about my child? He's very nice. So, what a cute little child. Anyway, so you really have to know where to go to. And you tell the other person honestly, it's a very sensitive issue for me. Please, I love you, want to have a good relationship with you. Please just don't, we just don't talk about things that we're sensitive. Like I won't talk about things that are too sensitive for you. How about that? You set the boundary, and that really worked with my father. Eventually, he attributed his business success to my being a devotee. It got to that point. He said, I know I've been successful, but so successful in business because you're a devotee. And he was quite successful. He had Rolls Royce cars, which he didn't share with me. One time he came to visit me with his Rolls Royce, and I said, how much mileage do you get in this thing? How many miles per gallon? He said, this is a funny story. He said, if you have to ask that question, you don't belong in this car. If you're concerned about how many miles per gallon, you don't belong in an expensive car like that. So, one more question and then we can end. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I feel like there's life flowing here. Thank you. I particularly resonated, or I was inspired by the quote that you gave from Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj about one must have the relationship with this other person as if this is going to be determining my relationship with Krishna. I'm paraphrasing. Exactly. And I was just thinking that this is so nice, that it's very inspiring. My thought was that in order to practice that, one must be very tuned into one's own needs as well. Otherwise, one may just fall into the place where it's like constant need for approval and need for fitting in and somehow making everything right, this kind of a thing. And then the second thought connected to this was that in an attempt to be inviting, I sometimes face this difficulty of, I wanted to ask how much should we even endeavor in a relationship to what do I say? Like about enemy and friend kind of a thing. Not really inimical, but compatible, incompatible kind of relationships. Uh, Setting boundaries and having a somewhat of a working relationship or congenial relationship, but the other person takes it as disregard, disrespect, or you don't care, things like that. And if we step in a little bit further, the same person takes it as, once again, it's you're too familiar with me, you're too disrespectful in that sense. So it's like either end is difficult for this other person to process. So how much even should I invest, or should I just sit with my consciousness, how I am, but then not putting it out to them? Is that, how do I approach this kind of a situation?
Well, first of all, take your own needs first. And when you're concentrating on your own needs, it will be apparent how much you can give and how much you can't give. I mean, it's really important, because you can't be selfless or you can't care for others until your own needs are met. I mean, for example, if I'm hungry, you know, right now, I'm not hungry because they fed me too much today. But anyway, if I was hungry right now, I wouldn't be able to, you know, just communicate with you. So if I push myself to do it in spite of being in pain, you know, I remember, what was it, like a year or two ago, I had kidney stones and was in a lot of pain. So someone came to me and said, you know, can I have an empathy session with you? I would honestly say, leave me alone. I got to deal with this. So you really, whoops, it's the most important thing in our lives, the mobile phone. You know, yesterday I didn't have my mobile phone with me, but actually I didn't take it and I felt naked, you know. What am I going to do? So anyway, you know, be conscious of if your own needs are not being met in a relationship, you're not responsible for someone else's needs. And if someone does something, you know, gets angry or says something, that's their dealing with their own needs. That's the way I see it. You know, someone misunderstands, and of course I can try to explain myself in a different way too, but it's ultimately their responsibility. You have your choices. You know, we're independent entities, and you just have to treat it like that. A little healthy detachment. That's detachment. And basically, that's really what's helped me a lot, is because I'm not concerned with what other people think. You know, I have my relationship with Prabhupada. I'm concerned with other people, but I'm not really here to fulfill everyone's needs. I mean, I can help someone, I'm happy to help someone understand how to fulfill their own needs. That's your responsibility, not my responsibility. Otherwise, that's that codependency again. And then you can have really loving relationships. We mentioned this last night too, that like if someone does something for me, like cooks for me or something like that, then I can be appreciative, because if I'm thinking, here's that demand thing again. Remember we talked about the D, the demand. So if I'm thinking it's someone's duty to cook for me, and I'm a sannyasi, I come into town, wash my clothes, cook, here's my menu. Of course I do that anyway. I actually email my menu beforehand, yeah. You know, it's like a 300-page document. Cook it this way, this many minutes, this spices, don't use this, don't use that. You know, this type of olive oil, don't get the other type of olive oil. So, you You know, I do that, but at the same time, if someone says they can't do it, it's okay. It's okay, because I know how to go to Walmart. I don't go to Whole Foods because it's too expensive. But it's like a Whole Foods, whole paycheck. Anyway, so, or I'll go to Trader Joe's, you know, instead. Good prices there, actually. So, but I can take care of myself. That's all right. You don't want to do it? Fine. Someone says you can't stay in my house? Fine. I'll go to the hotel, and it doesn't bother me. You know, I'm not going to get upset. And then, when someone does something, I can be truly grateful. Because they don't have to do it. If I feel that someone has to do it, then I can never be grateful. Then it's your duty. Your duty to cook for me. Where's that prasadam? Where's my clothes? The funny thing is, if I do my own clothes, I don't iron them. Nah, it's Maya. So I do my own clothes sometimes. I like it. I know how to use a washing machine. People think, you know, oh, sannyasis, they don't know how to do anything. They become disabled before their time. They need a personal servant, you know. You know, some places I go to, of course, America, it's different. But, you know, especially when I go to India or to Fiji or different places where it's mostly Indian population, and I tell them I drive a car, and they say, "You actually drive a car? Oh my God, unbelievable." So, and I didn't. I know how to call Uber. So one has to maintain a little healthy sense of self-dependence. Because if you are too dependent on someone, then you actually lose your, well, you lose your sense of self-worth at that point. And so if someone doesn't do something, doesn't react, that's their choice. I know how to do it, no problem. I mean, sometimes you have to be dependent on someone if someone's disabled or something like that. And naturally that happens with most people when they get very old. But that's another thing. But it should be done out of love. That's why when someone gets old and they have to retire and everything like that, it should be taken care of by family members. Family members or other devotees or people who actually, you know, want to do it. If you pay someone to do it, it's not the same thing. That's one reason why I don't go to restaurants. One reason is, apart from other reasons, is that you're paying someone to do something. You know, if you have to pay someone to do something, I'd rather just do it myself. The bhakti's not there. What I appreciate in the prasadam is the bhakti is there. Otherwise, it's just tasteless. I'll give you an example. When I was a new devotee, I was traveling with a sannyasi, who should remain nameless. Anyway, this is in 1972 or something like that. And we thought, you know, let's just be footloose and fancy-free. We don't have to cook or anything like that. Let's just go to the supermarket, buy our bread, you know, whole wheat bread, you know, nice whole wheat bread, and buy salad dressing and salad and sticks of butter and jam, peanut butter and jelly. And so I thought, this is great, you know. The food that I ate when I was young. So anyway, so we ate like that for the first 2 days, and we noticed our consciousness was going down. Because the food was made by people who really were just getting paid or didn't care or whatever. And it wasn't the same taste as prasadam. Even though we were offering it, you know, you just offer it up. Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu. Please accept this Krishna. Okay. We do that. I mean, I don't do that. We did that. And it just, our consciousness was going down. We noticed our relationships were actually disintegrating. We were starting to argue with each other more. And so then we took the trouble, and it was so much trouble because in those days we didn't have fancy vehicles to travel in. So we had a big van, a cargo van. In those days it was called a maxi van. And I had to roll chapatis on top of the wheel well in the back of the van. That was our only flat surface, you know, just rolling chapatis as he was driving. And cooking on a gas stove, which is quite dangerous when you know, pumping the gas and rolling chapatis and heating them up over the gas stove. But our consciousness remained. We didn't die, but it could have exploded. It's a miracle. But it was tasty. Even those chapatis cooked on the wheel well were tasty. More tasty than all the fancy bread that we could buy in the supermarket. So I think we have to end now because tomorrow we got a big day. We're going to start with the program at 11. We have 11 to 1 and 2 to 3. 2 to 4, sorry. 2 to 4. 2 to 4 tomorrow afternoon. And so we'll get into the essence and the practice tomorrow. Okay? Thank you very much.
Let's give a loud Haribol to Maharaj. Haribol! If I can make some quick announcements before we disperse here. So as Maharaj mentioned, tomorrow, what time? 11 a.m. 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Then we'll have lunch, and then 2 to 4, and then we disperse. There will not be supper or dinner provided, or tea. But there's some books here. There's some copies of Maharaj's book here, Realizing Our Empathic Nature Connected to Krishna. So the essence of the practice, like Maharaj just mentioned, he's going to get into tomorrow, is described in this book. And it has many other facets of empathic communication for Krishna consciousness or devotees in Krishna consciousness. Very nice. Highly recommended. If you want to get a copy, whatever donation you'd like to give, you can offer to myself or my wife. A couple other things. We have prasadam downstairs. I'd like to thank the devotees who cooked. Yesterday was Devi Murti Mataji and Vrindavan Prabhu. Today was Shatarupa, who just asked the question. She ran away, looks like. And a couple others, right? Who else cooked? Manasi Ganga Mataji and Madhvima. Thank you so much. And then I'd like to request something if it's not too much of trouble. We set up chairs upstairs, maybe 25, 30 chairs upstairs. And I think if we have like 6 to 10 people, we'll be able to bring it down in a jiffy. We need to bring it back to the temple room because they're not meant to be upstairs. So if maybe 6, 7, 8, 10 people can go up, rack up the chairs and bring them back down here and stack them in the back there, that'd be really, really nice. So that we cleave. I've taken the table down. Okay. Yeah, so I think that would be really nice. Just leave the place cleaner than we found it. All right? Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow. On behalf of the Devotee Care Committee, thank you so much for coming and spending your time on this very valuable conversation.